Okay, so on Friday I posted a video. I'm not sure how many people watched it, but we'll we'll take a look. Anyway, I SQL is frequently requested, and I want to kind of cover a little bit. And so number one is when someone says I want to learn SQL, it could mean like a bunch of stuff. Okay, and I would say there's kind of two possible paths. And I'd say probably 90%. Most people, when they say I want to learn SQL, what they're talking about is I want to learn how to write a query to interact with the SQL database and to extract information from that SQL database, right? So it's just how do you write basically a statement, and it's a lot kind of like a pandas statement or something in dplyr where you're asking, hey, please give me a table with this information. And that's relatively simple, and you can I have kind of two little mini lectures on it, and you can, with practice, I would say you can get pretty proficient. If you practice for a couple hours a day, you can probably get pretty proficient within a week or 2 weeks. Okay, just like anything else, it takes practice. So that's one thing. The other side of, say, quote, learning SQL or using SQL is creating and managing a database and designing, like running the SQL server and setting up a server and designing a database. And that's like I want to learn to be a data scientist. It's like you can have a career as a database administrator where you're like designing and setting up and maintaining all of that, and that's a lot more complicated. And so if you go online and you're like, oh, I have to install MySQL or something, like, don't do that, okay? Trying to install MySQL and getting it set up, like that's gonna be a headache, right? And there's a lot of things that that can go wrong. And so if you want to do that, like, be prepared to spend like many hours just to even get like a very simple thing running. Where and pretty much all of these things, like with like MySQL, you need like credentials in order to kind of like terminal into the thing and interact with it and stuff, and then you got to like populate it with data. So as far as like learning things, my recommendation is like there's a couple like standalone databases that you can interact with. So part of the biggest hurdle in learning SQL is like finding a database that you can interact with, because like companies will have a database set up, but it's like safeguarded, right? This is like when they talk about a data breach and all, that's like they protect their database. They don't want, like, they're not going to let somebody on the internet just say like, oh, can I tap into your SQL server and just like learn how to interact with it, because there's a lot of like malicious players out there and things like that. So most companies that SQL server is like safeguarded behind, and there's a whole thing of like IT security and just like how do we make sure the credentials just to even like get in and ask questions of the server. And so a lot of times, like, if you want to access the server, you have to be on the local company intranet in like within the building, or you have like these special keys and things like that to kind of interact with that database. So I worked for UPS for a little bit, and they had these SQL servers, and it was like related to their package tracking system, and it was very like highly secure, and like obviously, because if some random person, they could just go in and be like, oh, my package is getting sent over here and there, right? So anyway, so I wasn't allowed to touch anything regarding like the administration, right? And then you set up these credentials, and like these are like basically the keywords you're allowed to use in your SQL thing, and anything where it's going to be like modifying a table, like you're not allowed to they can just say like, you're not allowed to do anything where you're going to like drop a table or something like that. Okay. So anyway, setting up a SQL server is quite complicated. But there are like light versions of SQL, and so there's something called SQLite, and these are kind of like self-contained little databases, or I mean, you could put in a fairly complex one, but it's like a little sandbox type of thing. And there's some databases that are just interestingly enough to be able to write some good queries. And so I've uploaded 2 of those to my GitHub. One is the Chinook database, Chinook, like the Chinook helicopter or things like that, and it's, I think it's based on this other data called the Northwind database. It's and the data, it's kind of funny. I don't know if you guys, how in the early 2000s, so you would have been like young, maybe not even alive yet, babies. You would buy music, you would buy individual songs, like these MP3s. I think you can still do it. I don't know. Like, I think everybody gets their music probably streaming through like Spotify or something. Some people might be like buying like vinyl, right, which has come back, but but yeah, in the early 2000s, you would buy like a 3 megabyte file from iTunes or something, and you would just download this thing, and you'd have to pay like 99 cents for it. And so anyway, it was like, oh, what if somebody set up a database running that? And so they have this North Chinook database, which has like, these are the songs and these are the albums, and this is like, I guess, the company and the employees, and everybody there is their birth dates. They're all like boomers now, but anyway, that appears. I linked to a couple resources. So one in this one is these SQL exercises, and these are actually good exercises, and they give you like a little sandbox to play around with. You just have to endure these ads everywhere. Okay, that's the only bad thing about this website, and you go, why don't you just use an ad blocker? But well, I don't mind a website getting the revenue for producing content that's useful to me, so that's fine. Okay, so anyway, all right. Well, so anyway, it says, write a SQL statement that displays all the information about all salespeople. And so you can click go to the editor, and you can do, select. So the convention is you write your keywords in all caps. And here we would do select star from, I think it's salespeople. And then I would click validate. And so you can kind of write a query here, or I click submit. Oh, maybe I forget. Oh, table of salesman. Okay. So, the simplest is like select all the columns and select everything. So I would, select star from salesman, and then I'll click, validate and submit. And then here it gives me back the results. Okay. And so that allows you to kind of run some practice queries here. And then they also show you like, here is the solution for each of these things, which is also handy. Okay. Again, so this is actually, I think, some really good exercises and stuff, and they start off very simple, like select statements, and then they get more complicated. Again, all you have to do, you just have to endure these ads, which are a little, they seem to have gotten more intrusive over the years. but maybe that's like also all of the internet. I feel like so many ads have gotten like way more intrusive. yeah, it's like I almost when I go on the app store and stuff, it's like if it's a free ad, it's like I almost don't want a free app. I almost don't want it because like I know it's just going to be full of ads, and it's like I please give me an app that's $3. I'll pay $3 if like I'd rather anyway. So that's so here's a bunch of kind of SQL exercises. They're pretty good. Also, in the other folder or in the other file, I've linked to this textbook called the SQL Cookbook, and this one comes from the O'Reilly catalog, and you just right now I'm logged in, but when you click in, it'll say like select your institution, and you just pick UCLA, and then the familiar login screen will appear, and then you can log in. And so here there's a bunch of kind of tables. Let's see. Wait. I need to make table of contents. So let's see. Where is Postgres? The employee and department tables, and I think I have the data for this thing. I can't remember where I got the data, but they're in here, so you can kind of interact with those things. Okay, so anyway, to interact with SQL within Python, you'll need a package called SQL Alchemy, and I think I have if you've installed using Conda or Anaconda, then SQL Alchemy will already be installed on your machine. But if not, you can just do like Conda install SQL Alchemy, and the basics are, and we are going to, there's all kinds of ways to interact with SQL, but I think to me it makes sense to use Pandas, and Pandas has kind of this thing where you're going to like execute a SQL query, and then it's going to take the results and turn it into a Pandas table. So you can start working with the Pandas table right away, which is pretty much, when you're using Python, that's pretty much how you're going to be interacting with data tables anyways, through Pandas. So I'm going to import Pandas, and then from SQL Alchemy, I'm going to import this function called create engine, and then here I'm going to run create engine, and I do SQLite / and I give it the name of the SQLite database, and that will allow me to interact with SQLite. Now, perhaps in the future, you can look up like how do you connect to, say, MySQL using SQL Alchemy or something like this, right? So they will have instructions on, if so, maybe at your company you'll have some kind of path to your database, and this will be provided by your IT department. Whoever the person is in charge of the database, they will provide you with that, along with kind of your username and password. And this, it's a little bit risky because it ends up getting stored in like plain text and some of these things here. But there will be ways to kind of log in to, say, like a MySQL database through this, right? And so just look up the documentation on something like that. Again, for this class and stuff like that, when you're using like a SQLite database, there's like no security. It's just like, okay, let's just open up the connection and something like that. Okay. All right, I'm gonna just skip these tables here, but and this I'm gonna also skip here. Okay, so where the command that we will be using throughout is just pandas read SQL query. Okay, so this makes it, once you kind of get things set up, and so actually in this second thing, that's the only command I'm going to be using. Okay, within pandas, there's a command read SQL query, and all you have to do is you just give it the name of the command and the SQL engine. The engine being like your connection to the database here. So yeah, I'll go ahead and just kind of quickly do it. So from SQL, we're gonna import create engine from import pandas. Okay, and then here I'm gonna create a connection to the employee SQL database, and here, if I want to see like what are the table names, I have to import the inspector. Okay, but this is optional. You don't actually have to do this. Okay, but here, if I want to get all of the table names that exist inside the database, I can do that. And so this is a very, very simple database where there's only two tables: the department and the employee. But this is a little bit enough to kind of do some exercises here, and so we'll take a look here. Okay, and again, these are adapted from this textbook, the SQL textbook, and I'd say there's quite enough. It's a fairly lightweight textbook. It's not like super heavy. It's just called the SQL Cookbook, and it just kind of lists off just a few, very simple kind of, how do you retrieve records, sort query results, and how do you do this, and work with strings, work with numbers, all kinds of stuff here, right? Advanced searching and stuff, things like that. Okay, probably won't even get into any of those. Okay, so just to kind of see like what exists in the table. All right, so basically the simplest kind of command here is select. Star is all columns. Okay, so we're going to say select star, and then from, and EMP for the employee table, right? So that's one of the table names. Again, the convention is your SQL keywords you write in all caps, and your table names and variable names you put in the same caps and case that appears in the table. Now, technically, SQL is case insensitive, so I'm pretty sure I can write this in lowercase, select star from employee, and it will run just fine. Okay, and I think I can even like just do like wonky, right? I can do this and it'll still run. SQL doesn't actually care, but just so you do not seem like unprofessional, okay, I recommend you follow the convention. Okay, so this is what we have. We have employee numbers, employee name, job, and their manager, which is, I guess, a person. Okay, and so one thing that happens is, so this is a little bit of an unfortunate thing of using SQL with pandas, is that with pandas doesn't know how to include missing values without converting things into numbers into floats, right? So their manager is the number of an employee, okay, 7902, all right? So it's this Ford person whose boss is 7566, which is Jones, and his manager's 7839, who is King, the president, and he has no boss, right? No boss to report to, so he has a missing. Okay, this unfortunately, as soon as you put in a missing value here, it converts everything into floats, and so now we get 0.0. So that's one of the unfortunate things of working with SQL with pandas, is it will modify some of your stuff. Okay, but then we have stuff like this: hire date, and then I guess their salary and their commissions as far as salespeople go, and their department number, okay? And then we can also ask, what's everything in the department, and we just have accounting, research, sales, and operations, and they're all in different locations, which is a crazy setup for a company, but for the sake of I guess the database examples, it's fine. Okay, so one thing is you can within SQL. So SQL's been around for a very long time, and they keep kind of adding and developing features and stuff. And I guess there's a little bit of a caveat in that some of the things that run on one version of SQL, like if you have MySQL, is not going to necessarily work the same way on Oracle or something like that. There's enough of commonality that it's mostly okay. Certainly your basic statements will be fine, but then how it handles weird stuff, it's going to be different. Did I set up a view quiz for today? No. Give me a second. Okay, so today's view quiz is up. Oh, all right. Okay, so just, I guess, an announcement. Wednesday, no class. It's the day before Thanksgiving, so I'll have office hours. I don't know if you have any need for office hours, but I'll just I'll log in onto Zoom, answer any questions that you have. But other than that, just take a little break, okay? It's and then come back from Thanksgiving rested and I guess ready for week 10 and finals and stuff. And then some students had kind of conflicts with the final exam schedule, and you've messaged me, and I will respond to everybody, and we will set up a alternate time for those of you who had conflicts. So just be patient for me to respond here. Okay, and then just a couple changes. I guess Friday I'll have office hours, and then Saturday I'm not going to have office hours. So just so you know. Okay, so let's just look at a few, I guess, a couple queries here. You can kind of combine things. So you can have, conditions. So here I'm going to say where department number is equal to 10. And so one thing that's interesting about SQL is, a lot of other programming languages, we're used to seeing the double equals, okay? Double equals for tests of equality. But within SQL, when you write a lot of these queries, you're not going to be modifying values. You're not going to be assigning things to stuff like that. There are certainly functions and queries where you can insert values into a table, but inserting values into a table and modifying values in a table often requires a higher level of permissions and stuff, and is often safeguarded behind a bunch of kind of things that validate forms, right? So it'll be customers entering information on the website, and then that goes through some cleansing stuff, and it's all kind of automated, and then it gets entered into it. And so no human is actually interacting with it. It's the person who designed the website and stuff, they figured out, okay, this is the exact query that needs to be run to insert this thing. So humans aren't manually entering values into the thing, which is, you might type something in wrong and make a mistake and mess things up. So again, making changes to a database is a higher level of permission. So most of the time you're just asking questions what's this and what's that? So no need for a single equal for any kind of assignment. You just say, all right, where the department number is equal to 10, and that's what you have. Okay, this is a little bit weird. We're going to say select the employee name, and then you get these double vertical bars. And this just means a kind of glue together. All right, we're used to seeing like the plus or the ampersand or something like that. Here, it's a double vertical bar is a concatenation operator, and then you can put in text in quotes here, and then double vertical bar, and then here we've got job, as MSG is our the job, okay, and as a message here, okay, and that's this is basically a column title that we're going to make, and then we're running this on the employee table, and we're going to ask where department is equal to 10, and so department is we're going to just look at department 10, which is where we have the president and the manager and Miller the clerk here, and we're going to go ahead and run that. Here you notice I have all of these things in triple quotes, and that's just because I'm again running them with pandas, where I'm writing a string and then I'm just running the string, and then anytime you have like multiple line strings, we often just enclose them in triple quotes. All right, and there you go. So the as message gives us a kind of a column heading right here. Oh wait, did I give you the first view quiz? Oh, I set up the view quiz, but I didn't give you the first view quiz answer. Okay, first view quiz is the letter D. D as in dog. D as in dog. D as in dog. Okay. Here, let me just run a few of these things. So this is again a different table here. Okay, there's an employee table, and this is like for the MP3 database. Okay, and here this is a different employee table. But here we said select everything, and I just want to kind of cover a few quick operations, because again, I'm not sure if everybody watched the video that I posted on Friday. So there is order by, all right, and this is kind of like sort the column, and here we're going to sort by birth date, okay, and so in this database, the youngest person was born 1973, which would have made sense if if you imagine this database being created in like 1999, which was like the height of the MP3s and stuff like that, okay? So if you imagine the database being created in like the year 2000, the year 1999, this person would be 27 at that time. Now they would be 50. Oh geez, okay. Yeah, so anyway, that's what we have, and this person would be long retired, right? 1947, they would be old. 70, 70, 75. Yeah, they would have retired 10 years ago. Okay. Sales support agent. Okay. All right, and then basically conditional things. So the where statement is kind of like using an if or a filter in or something where you just say like, I only want these rows, right? You're setting some kind of condition for this, and so I think a lot of times it's fairly easy. So we have select, and this is often considered a good kind of form is each keyword kind of gets its own line. So we're going to say select everything from the employee table where employee ID is over 6 and the title is equal to IT staff. Sure. Okay. Order by birth date. We're going to get these two things. You can do limit, which is kind of like running head, where it just kind of gives you like the first 10 values, and this is this is like an albums table. The artist table has a bunch of things, and so you can do that, and then you have a bunch of join statements. So we did join statements with pandas, and you can also do join statements in R, and basically all of these things where you've got like multiple tables and you kind of like need to match up by a certain column. you can do this, right? So we're gonna do select everything, and we're going to join the album table with the artist table. And so here we have, albums have their own ID, and the albums belong to an artist. So I don't, are you guys familiar with Alanis Morissette and Jagged Little Pill or something? She has like a musical and a show or whatever, right? Again, in the 90s, she was a big thing. And now she's a mom. And so anyway, so this is her album, okay? Artist ID number 4, okay? And then you can look up artist number 4, Alanis Morissette. And so this is, I don't know if, like AC/DC, right? Okay. And so you can see, right? For those about to rock, we salute you. So this is actually like real things, right? Let There Be Rock belongs to artist ID number 1, and artist ID number 1 is AC/DC. And so we want to kind of like join the album table with the artist table, and we'll do a join, and we're going to say join the album with the artist table, where album.artistid is equal to artist.artistid. So we're just going to kind of match those things together, and so we can see that this is what we get. Okay, and so now here I said select everything. So when I did select everything, these are the 3 columns in the album table. Okay. And then these are the 2 columns in the artist table. And so we get 5 columns, and we can see artist ID over here. It matches artist ID over here. And, this is now redundant, but that's what when you say select everything, that's what it's going to do. And so we can say select, all we really want is select the title and the artist name. Okay. So we're going to do, so from here, we're going to rename title, and we're going to do select title as album title, and name as artist name, and those will now be the only 2 columns that we get. Okay, album title and artist name, and that's it. Okay, and this is the resulting thing. And if you want, you can do some operations here. Okay, and so here I have a group by operation. So we're going to group by artist ID, and now we're going to ask, like, what's the count of the album ID? And this is stupid to average the album ID. That's not going to be helpful. Okay, but I just wanted to kind of include this in here so you can see, we have these operations like count, like calculating the mean. Okay, and here we call it average, or getting a sum. So those are probably some of your most common kind of summary operations here, right? So, what's the average of the album ID? That's a completely pointless operation, but that's what you would end up getting, okay? And so, but it can be done. It can be done here, okay? All right. So anyway, those are some of the things, and I've written a few more queries here as they get more complex. And so anyway, I leave it to you, just that video that I kind of posted where I kind of go over a lot of the same stuff. Here's a few more operations. You can sometimes you want to have kind of like an if-else statement. Okay, and so perhaps you want to like fill in like a value into a column, all right, based on other values here. So we're going to say like, all right, let's take their name and then their salary, and then I can create like cases, and this will we're going to so this is a little bit weird, but we're going to create a new column called status. Okay, select employee name, salary, and then this whole operation is going to get run, and it's going to get selected, and we're going to post that as status. And what we're going to do is we're going to like look at one of the other columns, and if it's less than 2,000, then we're going to do lower wage. If it's greater than 4,000, we'll do higher wage, and if it's something else, we'll do middle. Okay, and then so we've gone through and we've created a new column, called status. So this is kind of like it feels a little weird and wonky, okay, but it's like within this thing, within SQL, and again, this is part of the problem between having multiple tools that do the same thing. There's kind of a question like, should I just use SQL to get stuff, and then should I then manipulate it with pandas because that's a little bit more comfortable? And certainly that's one way to go about it. And then there's a lot of times ways to do it within SQL itself. And honestly, the way you're going to get better at any of these things is not doing what you're comfortable with. Okay, and so prior to this class, I don't know what you were most comfortable with, was R or Excel or something, and so you can always kind of say like, oh, I want to just go back to this tool that I'm familiar with because I can do it kind of quickly and things like that. And then if you want to learn Python, then what you should do is you should force yourself to use Python, even in situations where you're like, oh, right now for me at this point in time, it would be so much easier to do it in R because I already know the commands and all of these things. And you can kind of sit and struggle through it with Python, but that will make you better. And then, once you get used to doing stuff in Python, you can say, well, okay, what if I have my hands tied and I'm gonna try to do everything by forcing myself to use kind of SQL commands. And again, anytime you're doing something new, like you'll probably be writing like really inefficient things, and you're going to be doing things in this really long roundabout way. But then you read someone else's thing and you go, oh, that was so much smarter. That was so much quicker. And that's how you get better. And that's when you can say, I am proficient on this thing on your resume. Although, when you write a resume and you want to say like, I'm good at something, don't write I'm proficient in so tip, right? If you just say proficient in R, proficient in Python, proficient in SQL or something like that, that means nothing to an employer, because everybody just says I'm proficient in all of these things, right? So don't lie, but you can say like X hours of experience coding in Python, right? So you can say 500 hours experience coding in Python. I don't know if I'm trying to think, how many hours of experience have you gotten in this class? I don't know, 10. We've been in it for 10 weeks, and maybe you've done 8 to 10 hours in a week. I don't know, something like, that might be a little bit on the high side. So, right now you might have somewhere between, 40 and 80 hours so far. Okay. And, obviously with more experience or whatever, if you can quantify like approximately how many hours or how many lines of code or whatever, I know lines of code is such a terrible metric. Okay. But if you can kind of like quantify something in terms of like what level of experience you have, or if you want to just set up like a portfolio on GitHub where you can do something like this, right? But if you can say, yeah, I've got 200 plus hours or something, or if you complete a whole bunch of kind of certificates on data game. I don't know if anybody actually cares about the actual certificates, but it might mean something to say you completed at least this many courses on something. Just it's a lot more descriptive than just saying proficient, because that could mean anything from 5 hours to a couple hundred hours, and who knows, right? And so yeah, with SQL, there's going to be a lot of overlap in terms of like the operations you can do with SQL that you could also do in pandas and things like that. Okay. There is also, there's even random functions, okay? And so here, if you wanted to randomize the order, you can call the random, and so you can like randomly sample your table, right? So we're just selecting everything here, and then we're going to like randomize the order, and then we're going to just say, give me the top 5 or something like that. Let me see. I actually don't know. SQL random. I don't know if there's a seed. How to set random seed in SQL. SQL, oh dear. Function dot, okay. Print function dot random. Okay, so this seems more complicated than what I want. But yeah, you know, Google is your friend. Look up anything you want to try to do something, you look it up, right? In SQL, you can also ask, hey, where is something missing? And then you can, in SQL, you write is null, where something is null. And here we get communications is none here. And so it's an interesting thing. Here we have, here they show up as nans, but because on the SQL side we filtered, or we subset only to those where it is none, okay, there's no numbers that got populated. And so, you know, one thing that Python will do, or I guess pandas will do, it's a kind of a side effect of NumPy, is that, you know, when you have numbers mixed with missing values, those missing values get coded as nan. But here, because there's no kind of mixing of types, like I can do, this is a none type. All of these nuns, they get kind of mixed in with object type here. Object type being, you know, used to represent strings and you know, character type data. Okay. Here we can. So these are the commissions, and so if you wanted to like substitute values in commissions with zeros rather than having a none, you can run this command called coalesce. All right, and it's just like funny vocabulary, okay? And so now we can kind of coalesce commissions, zeros as commissions. So anytime there's a missing value, you can kind of substitute all of these things, all right? So again, all of these things I'm just taking straight from the that textbook, the SQL cookbook. And there's kind of a lot of things in there. This is really just to get you started. And really the most important thing I want to say is, like, don't try to set up your own MySQL server, or you don't try to set up your own SQL server, because it's just going to be heartaches and heartbreak and frustration. So so don't do that. Just use like a prepackaged SQLite type of thing, and you can write queries and interact with it in Python. And then, yeah, if you do want to set it up SQL, then a SQL server, then I would recommend, you know, enrolling in a proper course for something like that. Okay, we'll just go ahead and wrap it up here for now. This was like searching for patterns, which you can also do. It kind of has its own little way of searching for wildcards and stuff. So anyway, just look at those resources that I've linked, endure those ads, and or go through the little mini textbook from O'Reilly. They're both pretty good. But anyway, yeah, we'll end here. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week. Enjoy. Have a good Thanksgiving. Safe travels for any of you who are traveling. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, see you Monday, okay? And
we only have one quiz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The other two answers, sorry, thank you for that reminder, are E and C. E as in elephant, and C as in cat. E and C are your last two view quiz answers for today. E and C. Okay, happy Thanksgiving. See you later.